All right, thank you everyone for joining us today. This is the San Diego Unified Psychologist Department training for Google Forms. And so today's presentation is going to possibly be about 2 hours because we're going to do a very thorough deep dive into all things Google Forms. So by the end of this, if you stay to the end to watch it, you will know just about anything and everything you'd ever want to know about Google Forms. Google Forms is easily one of the most popular programs that Google provides for us because it allows us to be able to collect data and do it in very specific ways, and the information goes automatically to spreadsheets, and we can manipulate that data and see all kinds of answers and presented in different ways. And so we're going to dive deep into that. All right, so to get started with Google Forms, we're going to do what I usually do, which is go to my sandy.net Google domain Drive account. And just as a reminder, everyone in the school district, that whether it's a student or a staff member that has a sandy.net email address, you have access to all of the Google apps through the sandy.net Google domain. So here is my sandy.net drive. I see a little picture of me and I hover over it and I see that it has my sandy.net email address. So here it is in my drive, and I'm grateful to those of you that have watched the video on our Drive presentation. It's really important to understand how Drive works. But very quickly, I'm just going to make a folder for today because we're going to be creating some new stuff and also putting some other things in there. So I'm just going to right click real quick and say new folder. And because my drive is set up in alphanumeric ordering, I'm going to use that tool to try and create a folder that will present itself right here in the top left. And so I'm just going to call this today's folder. That way, when I see it some other time, I will know that it's one that I can eliminate or throw into the trash if I need to. So there it is. It's going to show up in the prime position because alphanumeric ordering, the punctuation always happens before the numbers, and then the numbers get larger, and then it gets to the ABCs. And as we can see down here, we've got the very last one, which has 3 Z's in it. And then real quick, I'm just going to go down. I right-clicked on that today's folder. I'm just going to make it red so it stands out. And that's where we're going to start today. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on that. And here we are in a brand new folder. And of course, I'm always looking up here at my navigation bar to see where I am. I'm inside my drive, but specifically inside the today's folder. So it says I can drop files here, or I can use a new button up here. So if you click on that, oh, look, you can make another folder. I can upload files. Remember that everything that happens in Google happens in the cloud. The cloud is a euphemism for, well, the internet for one, but it's actually Google server farms. They have them all over the world, and at near the speed of light, everything we're doing in our browser is being uploaded into the Google server farms, and everything's being recorded, which is great. So what I'm going to do is start a Google form. I'm just going to go to a blank form right here. And because I'm in the today's folder, it's going to end up where? In the today's folder. So here we go. So it's opened up a new tab, and now it says untitled. So first thing we always want to do is name it so that we can find it later. I'm just going to call this practice for today. And I'll call it a practice form. How does that sound? All right. So I just click away from it and watch what happens right here in this area. Saving. All changes saved. So that took about a second, maybe a little bit less. And what it also did is it brought down like a title from this. If we don't want it to say practice form, or we want to change this in some way, we can just click on it. And I'll just put a couple dots there to show you that we can change it. Saving. All changes saved. So here is our user interface. I'm just going to click away for a second so it looks a little bit different. Google Forms is probably one of the most intuitive programs that Google has. And what I mean by that is it's very simple. And we're just going to look at a few things. I've got several up here examples, starting with very basic, going into some very detailed examples of what Google Forms can do. But we're going to start off with just this user interface with a brand new Google form that we just opened up, just to kind of appreciate how simple they've made this. So we see that right here we have some tabs. We have questions, responses. So once we send out this form or this survey and individuals begin to respond to it, we'll call them respondents. Then we can look at the data that's coming in there. And then, of course, settings is where we get to control how the user's experience is when they fill out the form. Are we going to automatically collect emails, things like that? And we're going to get to all of these, but we're going to start off here with questions, of course. And this is it. This is a user interface. I can't scroll my mouse wheel back and forth and anything happen because there's nothing down here to look at. It's just this. So here we have like kind of like a title, if you will. And again, it kind of borrowed it from over here, and we can make changes if we want. We just have to click on it. But before I even do that, I just want you to appreciate a couple of other things. We see that there's a blue line over here on the side. There's not one here. If I were to click down here, watch where that blue line goes. This opens up. And now we can do some editing of this. We can change some of the things that are in here, you know, put a question, for example, and all that. And then if we click back up here, we see the blue line is here. Over here, we see this thing jumping up and down. This is our like mini toolbar, or maybe it's like a shortcuts bar. It basically has everything we need to build out a survey, from adding questions to importing questions to creating a new section title. Like maybe the first part is collecting personal information, and then the second part is about you know, student information or something like that. We want to put a new title in there. Anytime we want to add a picture, we can go anywhere. We can go to Drive, we can go to the internet, do a Google search for images, all of that, and we can put pictures in a number of places in our Google form. And this is one of the ways that we can do it. And then this, of course, is add a video. And you probably recognize that icon. Back in, I think, 2010, I believe, Google bought YouTube. And so all the YouTube videos on the planet are available to you. And if you ever want to include one, like an explanation of how to do something, or how to fill out the responses, like a little video that you made, if you put it on YouTube, then you can get it into your form just by a click and then selecting that particular YouTube video. That's pretty cool. And then look at that. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's the sixth one, add a section. So if you've ever filled out a form before, you'll notice sometimes you answer a couple of questions and then there's like a little next button, or, you know, move to the next section kind of a thing. Well, this is how you create your sections. So appreciate for a moment that this is the user interface. Yes, there's a lot more to than what you can see. And we have a few more tools up here at the right, which we're going to look at all of those, or at least talk about them for a second. But it's pretty straightforward. And so this toolbar will just follow us wherever we go. And just remember that wherever the blue line is, that's the section, if you will, that we are working with at that point. And importantly, if I decide to add a question, it will always land right after whatever the blue is. So if this is a question we've already done and we decide to add a question, it's not going to add it down here because the blue line is here. It's going to add it right here, but that's okay too. And so we're just going to kind of play around with this a little bit, and then we'll jump up there to some of that. So if I wanted to, I could start to do a little bit of description here, practice form. I'm just going to type something out. This is just for today. There we go. All right, so just a little bit of an explanation there. And so immediately we see some of our other tools. And again, Google Forms, just like all of the other Google apps, are evolving all the time. The very smart men and women at Google engineers that are adding tools and features to Google Forms, they're making it better all the time. And so it used to be that you had very little control over the font and what you could do with it. And about a year and a half ago, I think it was, maybe 2 years ago now, they started adding some of these other features that we're familiar with. So if it's important to us, we want to bold it, or maybe we just want to like take this part and make it bold, we can do that. And I'll show you some finished examples of what that would look like, of course, in a little bit. But there's italicized, underline. Do we want to add a link? Do we want to do a numbered list, a bullet list? Do we just want to get rid of all the formatting so that all of these things go away and it just goes back to regular text? That's our little tool there. And it says this form is automatically collecting emails from all respondents. And you have a choice. You can automatically get the emails from everybody that fills out your form, which is probably a good way to go. But you can also make it so that it's their choice. They get to put in whatever email they want, or not collect emails at all. And that's all done in settings, and we're going to see that in a little bit. But let's just go down to this question real quick. So it says untitled question, option 1. And I can tell by looking at it, because I've done this enough times, that this is a multiple choice. And it turns out, I'm just going to click on it. It turns out that of all the questions that are available, and I'm going to open up this drop-down list, from short answer, paragraph, multiple choice, checkboxes, drop down, file upload, and a few others that we'll get to, it always seems to go to multiple choice. It's just kind of like by default. And so if I every time I create a new question by going here to say add new question, it just sort of jumps to multiple choice. So let's get started with this. I'm going to put my cursor over here. And again, we're in multiple choice. Most often, one of the first things that we're going to ask isn't multiple choice, because we're going to ask for someone's name, and we don't want to give them multiple choice possibilities of that. And so if I were to type out, what is your name, ? Then obviously it wouldn't be multiple choice. I would want to change that to more likely like a short answer. And just so you know, short answer and paragraph, we'll see some examples of both of those. But this shows you about 40 or 50 characters, although as you're typing it out as a respondent when you're filling out the form. And this one will just show unlimited. You could put bullet points in there, numbered list, whatever. You just have all kinds of room to do it. Both of them will take 10,000 characters, and I say that by experience because I actually entered those, copied and pasted, I should say. But the difference is with the short answer and the paragraph one is the short answer, you only get to see a small little section of what you're typing at a time, and then it sort of scrolls to the left. And we'll see what that looks like. And then paragraph, of course, you can see everything you're writing as you add additional lines or keep putting more in. So we're going to want the name question probably to be a short answer. But watch what Google does to make it easy for you. I don't even have to type in all of that. What is your name? I'm just going to do it real quickly and say name. And do you see what happened over here? Short answer. It automatically switched. So Google is using their artificial intelligence. It's just called machine learning at this point. Don't worry, no one's going to steal your bank account. This is just that part of artificial intelligence where it's watching what you're doing, and it's seeing what you're inputting, and it's figuring out what is the best. If I wanted to go back and switch this to multiple choice, I certainly could. I could go back there, and there it is. But I love the fact that it's paying attention and making it easier for us. We're just going to go back to short answer. So let's make it a little bit more official. I'll just add that. So what is your name? And again, we can make things bold, italicized. We can do some different formatting. And it says short answer text right there. Cool. So here's another thing. If we want to add a picture or an image to this question, we can do that there. And again, I'll show you some examples of that a little bit later. But let's just quickly look down here. Oh, duplicate. We can make copies. Every time we're working on a question, and it doesn't matter what kind it is, we can always be able to duplicate that, and then it creates the exact same, whatever this question is and how it's made, and then creates a duplicate down here. This, of course, we recognize, delete, and required, not required. You've probably seen that before. If you are trying to fill out a form, it will not let you go to the next section or even submit it if there is a required button on there. And real important, do not make any of the questions required until you are done building out your form. I'm going to say that one more time in a different way. If you put required on there because, yeah, you want them to put their name. Okay, so I'm going to put required, and I'm going to click that right there. Now it's required. And so let's look at our very first button up here. This is preview. Well, let's think about what preview is. Right now, we are in the user interface for creating this form. Here's our toolbar. Here's the question we're working on. If I want to see what the respondent gets to see, or the people we're sending a survey or form to, what they're going to see on their end, I just click preview. But before I do that, appreciate that we're on this tab here. And when I say preview, we're going to open up another tab. So watch this. Boom, opens up another tab. So this is what it looks like. So because I have by default, all my Google Forms are going to automatically get the email address of whoever's filling it out. In this case, it has my sandy.net email address. Because I have that selected in settings, it's going to automatically put this up here. I did not have to add this. It's just automatically going to show up in all of the forms that I make, unless I turn that off. And because it's automatically grabbing something, they changed this a few months ago. So now you have to click that to acknowledge the fact that you know that your email address is going to be part of the answers to this survey or this form. All right, so that's what that asterisk is there. And we see it again here. So if I try to submit, watch what happens. Wait, no. Before you submit, this is required. You have to acknowledge that. Oh, okay. And well, I'm not going to put my name there and submit. Nope, this one's required. You have to put your name there. And just so you know, it's not checking to see if this is your real name or if you're just hitting keys randomly on the keyboard. Now, remember I said short answers, you could put 10,000 characters, but you only get to see like 40 or 50 of them at a time. Yeah, if you're asking someone with a question where you want them to write out a paragraph, do not use the short answer. You want to use the paragraph one because you can only see a small portion of this at a time. And so if you're trying to look at what you wrote and you have to use your left arrows and your right arrow to go back and forth, it's kind of annoying to only see a small portion of it. But of course, for a name, that would be absolutely appropriate. Well, I don't want to submit an answer right now because I'm not collecting answers on my form. So because I'm just testing it out, I can say clear form. You want to clear it? Yes, I do. All right. Now it goes back to where it was. All right. So remember I said that we were starting here on this tab, and this is where we were creating our form, our practice form. And then when I clicked on preview, it opened up another one. Well, this is interesting and important. Down here, and this is the preview mode, we see this little tool here. It says, hey, edit this form. Oh, okay, so I can get back to edit that way. Watch what happens with my tabs at the top. Okay, so yeah, we're back here to the user interface where I get to have my little toolbar here, working on this question. Well, what's this over here? Oh, wait, that's the same thing. So usually when we are creating a form, every minute or three, especially when we're brand new at this, we're going to preview mode. And each time you do it, I'll click it one more time. I'll just go ahead and click that. It opens up another tab. And if each time I go back to edit this way, and then I'm looking at it and I had a couple of questions and I want to see a preview, you can already appreciate what's going on here. I now have 1, 2, 3, 4 tabs open, all the same. And depending on how quickly all this data is going back and forth to the Google server farms, you can appreciate that one of these forms may have a question that you just added, the other one may not, and it really gets annoying and kind of confusing. So what do we do instead? I'm just going to get rid of these extra ones here. So again, here's the practice form we're working on. If I want to see a preview and I go to here, I highly recommend you do not click this edit form. All you got to do is go up here and say, okay, thank you for opening up a preview tab. I'm done. Boom. And it takes you right back to your practice form. That's just a little helpful tip. All right. So again, we don't want to include required on any of the questions at the very beginning, because as we go back and forth, we want to be able to go from section to section, whatever, and be able to see what we're working on. All right. So that's pretty cool. Let's go to another question real quick. And where's the question? If I go to add one, where's it going to end up? It is going to end up below wherever I'm working. So that's pretty cool. So let's just show you what happens if I'm up here and I say, next question. It pushed name down and now it's in the wrong spot. So let's take again, it goes straight to multiple choice. So here we see these like little 6 dots, and very quickly we're like, oh, that looks like a grab button. Let's see what happens. Left click, grab. Can we drag it that way? Well, it doesn't want to go to the bottom. That's kind of interesting. How about this one? Oh, okay. I'll just grab that one and move it up. Depending on how many questions you have out there, it reacts a little bit differently to what you're doing, but we can easily move things around. So let's go back to this one here. Again, it's multiple choice. How about we just do phone number real quick? So I'm just going to type in phone and then a question mark. And you see that it switches to short answer because that's just kind of how you're going to do it. So that's great. We could put the phone number in there. And if we wanted to collect email, we could do another one. And we could say email. And remember, it says multiple choice right now, but watch what happens. And then a question mark. It just switches. It kind of knows. Does it do that every time you're doing a question? It just depends on what you're putting there. But it's figured out that name, phone number, email, those are just short little answers. And so it sort of goes to short answer. All right. That's pretty simple. That's just one way that we can do that. So I am going to look at all this and think, okay, let's take a look at what this looks like. We already talked about some of these features here. I'm going to go to preview just so we can appreciate how simple this is. And there it is. So this one again is only here because in settings, I asked it to be there so that we're always recording it. And then again, Google Forms is just making sure you realize that it's collecting your data. So you have to check that box. But there we go. Name, phone, email, submit. Very simple form. And look down here. This form was created inside of San Diego Unified School District. Why? Because it's part of our sandy.net Google domain, and I'm doing this with my sandy.net email address. All right, so that's pretty simple. Why is it purple on the side or lavender? And then we have like a dark purple line up here. That is the theme that is set up by default. Can we change that? Does Google give us some choices? Sure it does. Let's just get out of edit, or out of a preview rather, and let's go back. So we looked at this one already, preview. Let's just real quick appreciate this one. It says add-ons. So Google, like many of the programs that are out there, allows third-party vendors or programs to be able to work. So Google Forms can do a lot of things, but there's a lot of things it can't. So Google allows third-party vendors to create stuff called add-ons, which will then beef up or make more powerful your Google Form ability. We're not going to demonstrate that in this class, but those things are out there, and you can research it online to see if there's some way you want to like be able to change the way things look. But that's what that is. Let's look at the next one, customize theme. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. All right, and now we have this little theme window opened up over here. And so we see that we have text style for headers. It's by default Roboto, 24 points, font size 24. Our questions like phone and email and name is also Roboto, it's size 12. And then text, when we're adding more descriptions or something like that, is apparently Roboto and 11. Does it give us endless possibilities? No. But I will tell you that there's way more possibilities. There's dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, more possibilities now than what there was a couple of years ago, where you only had like 3 options. So let's take a look. Okay, so I can't make it size 17 if I want, and I can't make it size 25 or greater, but I do have the choices of all of these. For what? The header. And what's a header? This part right up here where it says practice form. And just real quick, for the question, how big can I make the questions? Oh, there we go. Apparently from 12 to 18. So that's at least something. And this one is 9 to 12. All right. How about the fonts? How many choices do we have there? And again, remember, there was only 3 choices just like 18 months, 2 years ago. Now we seem to have almost an unlimited amount of different fonts that we can use. It's just for fun. Click that one and see what happens. Oh, okay. That's how that works. So we can change things if we want. I want to undo that. So I can go back up here and say, oh my gosh, what was that? Was that Roboto? What was that? Oh yeah, remember this button? Undo. So that takes us very quickly to that one. And what's this one? You probably recognize it, redo. Wow, we've gone through all of these already. Again, very simple user interface, and it's very intuitive. We will get to this one at the end. Of course, this is how you send out your form. And then there's some other options here that we'll look at, kind of like a extra settings, if you will. We'll look at that at the end. So that's pretty cool. We've got a number of different text things, but let's look down here. Header, choose image. The header goes up above here. We don't have anything. We just have a purple line. And if we go down even further, we can see that purple is selected right here. And then the background is this kind of light lavender color right here. So watch what happens to the background and the color of this if I just select red, for example. Okay, so now it's red, and it automatically picked a complementary color. Gives you a couple of choices so you can look at it and maybe add something different if you want. And so each one that you pick, it will try to find something complementary, but the color is just this line in the background. Well, Mr. J, that's not very many choices. That's all we get to do. Well, the one way you get to be really creative is this one right here where it says choose image. And so we get this dialog box that opens up, and it says select a header. And immediately we see some pictures here, some jelly beans. Ooh, guitars. I love guitars. And we have this little elevator car, or stated differently, the way to scroll down below. There are lots of different images that are here. And what are these? These, we see like a rectangle, are basically what's going to show up above that. In this case, we have a blue line up there. It'll show up there. And so we are right now in work and school, and there are dozens and dozens of cool pictures that are here. But we have other options. Here's illustrations, and we can see, wow, the elevator car is even smaller. So there's just a whole bunch of stuff there. And if we see something that we're interested in, it's not really followable. Let's just pretend. You can just click one time there and then click insert. And remember, I will always tell you in our classes that there's a right click, a left click, double click, triple click, and depending on where you are, different things will happen. So rather than just select once here and then do insert, we'll just pick one and go double click and then give it a second. Bam. So not only did it put it up there as like a header image, it also changed this theme color to this right here and a background one that was complementary. Could I change it to something else? Yeah, you can always go get a custom color. And so here we see we have a spectrum. And as we go across it, we can see the hues changing. And within that, we have the ability to select here, select there. So we can get any custom color we want. I'm just going to pick this one and say add. And so now that's an additional color. And you can see it's already changed the color to the background. This is what it gave us by default. And I just added a new one. And so we have some ability to change all that. But let's go back to image upload again. So these are the themes. There's many of them that are here. And some of them are looping short videos, sometimes called GIF. Oh, look, this guy's taking a drink. Oh, this person over here is pouring their drink. Oh, here we see a picnic and the wind's blowing. We can see some little things moving. So some of these are, look at this one, the lights are going across it or whatever. Let's go back to birthday. Oh, we've got candles going, a little sparkler, the balloons are moving. That's pretty cool. So any one of these we want to put up there, and I'll just double click on this one for the fun of it. It'll show up there. And when sometimes it will show it actually right here in preview. For some reason on my computer, I don't know if I've got a memory issue or what. But remember, I'm on the internet on my browser, and I have a lot of stuff opened up here. And so maybe all of this stuff's taking up my temporary memory. And so it's not showing this. But know this, that when you send it to someone, the form, and when they get it, then they'll see the sparklers that are working. So that's kind of neat. So you can spend all kinds of time going through this, and just know that some of the images that you see in work and school might show up in food and dining or in party or whatever. Sometimes they overlap, but there's quite a few that are here. And you can spend all kinds, oh, this one's new. I thank you, Google people, for putting that. I love that. I'm going to double click on that for now. Double click. And it switches it. And so it changed the colors a little bit. That's kind of cool. And again, I don't see it moving, but when I send it out, it would be moving when they fill out their form. So that's kind of interesting. So we have lots of choices here, but we can also go to upload where we can take stuff off of our drive, take stuff off of our computer. If we have something stored there, if you have your Google Photos on this computer, I can go there and I can grab photos. But just know, if your photo that you're grabbing is a square, you only get to select this rectangle shape of it because it's going to be this shape right here. So can we do a lot to change the way our forms look? We can change font sizes. We can change the header. We can change the theme color. Like in this case, this kind of gold line here, the background. With all of these tools, that's it. This is all inside a theme. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of there. And again, to get there, we just went to customize the theme. All right, so there it is. It's very simple. Let's just go ahead real quick and go to preview just to see what it looks like. So someone's going to fill this out. And again, I've got way too many things opened up, so it's not showing the looping video, but it would be for those who are filling this out most likely, unless they have so many things open like I do. But that's the general idea. So there it is. Very straightforward. Pretend I wrote this out as, what is your email address? And it would make more sense. And they could put their answers there, phone number, name, that's it. And they can click submit. And again, because this one's required and I didn't make any of these other ones, if I try to submit it, it'll say, nope, this asterisk that's red indicates required question. And so it's going to make you acknowledge that your email is being used because in settings, I set it up to do so. So I can't submit. I'm just going to clear the form. Yes, just make sure I'm not collecting answers. I get out of the preview mode to go back to my building mode right here. So, all right, let's continue on. So what are some of the other types of questions? All right, so multiple choice. So on this one, we could just say, how about let's see, a favorite color, except for I didn't hit that hard enough. There we go. And all right, so it went to short answer. That's interesting, but I want to make it multiple choice. All right. And so here I can start to fill this out. It's pretty simple. Option one. Well, let's just do red. All right. And look, now it gave us another one. How about brown? All right, that's pretty cool. And how about blue? Everybody likes blue. And then, of course, I can just keep going and typing in whatever I want. And I'm hitting the enter key each time, and it's giving me new options. All right. Well, look at this one down here. It says add option for other. Okay. So if you're asking someone a question and you're giving them multiple choice possibilities, but you don't want to have this as an extensive or exhaustive list of what it is, maybe because there's what, bazillions of colors, you could click on here and give them the option of filling that out. So let's go ahead and okay, so we're still multiple choice. We can add pictures here. Oh, look, we can add pictures or images for every one of these. That's interesting. Oh, and now that I'm hovering over these, we see over here on the left, we see those little 6 dots. So we know what those are. Those are grab bars. So I can always just go over there and say, I want blue above brown. And you know what? I want red beneath all of those, and we'll put it down there. So instantly we can move things around. If I decide I don't want other, I can get rid of it there, or one of these other colors. I can just remove it. And again, I can add images. And of course, we know what these things are, and we'll look at this a little bit later. But we can see how quickly we're figuring out what all these things do. And again, if I want this question to be above email for some reason, I just grab it and drag it up there. Piece of cake. Let's take a look at our preview. All right. So there it is. So now we just have a choice. I can select blue. I can select brown. And you notice when I'm clicking on these that it only allows me to select one because it's not keeping one selected if I go ahead and select another one. But look at this one. So maybe this was the one I wanted, and I'll just choose another color, violet. All right. So it's giving me the option to do that because I set that up. And then now someone could select it, or could they? Nope, I've got to check that one. So I'm just going to go ahead and clear the form. Yes, thank you. And if you don't submit, you don't actually have to clear the form, but whatever answers you put on there will be there the next time you show up. So let's go back. So there's our multiple choice, and that's pretty cool. Let's look at the next one. And actually, we're going to go to check boxes next and drop down. So let's do check boxes. These 3 are very similar. They display differently, but there's some subtle nuanced differences between multiple choice, check boxes, and drop down. Very important ones. But let's just go ahead and see how this works. So again, we're on multiple choice for our favorite color. I'm going to say check boxes. Okay, so at first glance, it looks the same, except for these aren't circles anymore. They're now boxes. But there's actually more to it than that. Let's go ahead and go to preview real quick and see what that looks like. Okay, well, Mr. J, it looks the same. If I want to do other, I could click there and I could write the answer in. But know this, multiple choice only allows you one selection. And if I were to go up here to brown, for example, this one would deselect. But in checkboxes, it allows you to do all of them, one of them, none of them, however many you want. And so now we start to think about, okay, so when I'm filling out this form and I'm trying to get data, information from the respondent, am I giving them a choice as to multiple places they're working at or multiple things that are important to them? This might be what Google apps do you need to learn or would like to learn more about? And I could have all the different apps listed here, and they might want to learn about all of them. Or maybe they only want to learn about a couple, and then there's one that's not mentioned, and so they could type that in there. You can only do that in the checkbox. So keep that in mind. And so now we know the difference between multiple choice and checkboxes. Let's take a look at dropdown. There's dropdown. You may or may not have noticed that our other option just disappeared. Let's go ahead and look at the preview real quick. So it's just like what you thought it would look like, a drop-down menu, except because it's a drop-down menu, it doesn't give you the option to write in an answer. But you can certainly select whichever one of these you want. And like multiple choice, it only lets you do one. Remember, if you want them to be able to check off more than one answer for whatever reason, then you have to use the checkboxes. Okay, that's pretty cool. So I'm going to clear the form so that it goes back to its original thing. And all right, so if I then switch this back to multiple choice, then I have to then go back and add other for it to show up because I got rid of it by switching it. So keep that in mind. So all of this, just by clicking around, you can learn fairly quickly, and it just takes a little bit of time. So I was thinking, let's add another question here real quick, and I wanted to go back to this one here just so you can see it. Paragraph. Let's see what that looks like. So here's the question. So how about I'll just say favorite TV show just for fun. And I'm going to put a question mark. And then to make this a long question, I'm going to say why. That means someone has to type something out. So favorite TV show and why. All right, it's paragraph. So let's go ahead and see that in preview real quick. All right, so we're going to go all the way down to the bottom. And unlike the short answers, you can only see, again, we did this before, but it only lets you see just a little bit of what you're working on, and then it all kind of disappears. That's not helpful. If you are writing out a long answer, you're going to want to use paragraph, because as you do this, you can put as many lines. I'm hitting the enter key as I'm typing. So if I want to make bullet points and explain stuff or write out a whole paragraph, I get to see it as I'm writing. So that is the primary difference between that. But you know what? I have this down here under this one. I want to move that back up. So can we move it up? Sure. Just grab it, drag it, put it wherever we want, and just drop it, and there it goes. And so we can move those things around. Well, that was easy. So now we did multiple choice down here. We went through check boxes briefly, drop down menu. So let's talk about file upload. What the heck is that? If you need to collect information from your students, from parents, from teachers, from whatever, and in your department, I can imagine there's some things that you need to collect. I'm going to give an example that I'm familiar with, like a registrar or an attendance clerk, perhaps at a school site. At the beginning of the school, for someone to be able to go to that school site, they have to live in the area unless they get a special permission. But to show that they live in the area, they're going to have to show a copy of their utility bill, their phone bill, or a combination of those two. And so we might want to actually allow them to be able to do a file upload. So I'm on my multiple choice one here. I'm just going to say add a new question. There it is. And I'm going to say file upload. And it says, let's respondents upload files to Drive. Files will be uploaded to the form owner's Google Drive. Respondents will be required to sign in to Google when file upload questions are added to a form. Make sure to only share this form with people you trust. Okay, continue. So check this out. Not only can we change, the font and different things like, please upload your phone bill or your utility bill, something like that. So this button says only specific types of files. Okay, so we can force them to say it has to be a PDF or whatever. We can do whichever one of those we want. So let's just go ahead and say PDF for right now. Maximum number of files, how many can they return in? If you're asking for more than one, you're going to want to select 5 or more. So that's pretty cool. Look at this, maximum file size. We've all seen this before where you're trying to send something in. It says, sorry, file size is too big. You get to control it here as well. So remember that 1 gigabyte is about the average hour-and-a-half high-definition movie. So there's 10 high-def movies. That's a huge amount of file space you're giving them, but you can limit it to just like 1 megabyte, which would be way more than you would need probably for just a couple of PDFs if that were the case. So that's pretty cool. It gives you that option. Anyway, so you spend a little bit of time looking at all these different things, but that's pretty cool, the way that you can allow things to be uploaded. So let's go ahead and just go to preview real quick. And we can see down here, I didn't actually write out the question, but I could have put up there, please send us a PDF copy of your most recent phone bill and or utility bill, something like that. And then they could click on that, go find the file and upload it, and then you'd get to collect it. And then they could click on select there. All right, so we're kind of going through this fairly quickly. Let's go ahead and at this point, I'm just going to add another section just for fun. So we'll just call this section 2. There we go. And so if we want to have a section like this is where we're going to collect your professional or personal information or whatever, and then we could just write a little description down here to give more clarity as to what's going to be here. But just like section 1 above, then we start to use all of these things and we can start asking whatever questions we want. Again, it goes to multiple choice by default, but we can change to whatever we want. So we've kind of taken a quick peek at all of these so far. Here's linear scale. This one's pretty cool. I'm going to go ahead and select this one. So now we have a whole nother way that we can ask questions and collect data. So I'm just going to put here, let's see, how about this? How often do you use, and we'll just say Google Drive. How about that? All right, question mark. So you could see that I was finger pecking that out, not the way I normally type, but that took me a little bit of time. And then maybe I want to come in here and make, something look a little bit better, or maybe look that bold right there so that it stands out a little bit. And it says, how often do you use Google Drive? And we can see on the linear scale, it's going to say 1 to 5. What are our options? Instead of 1 to 5, it could be 0 to 5. We'll just keep it at 1. Well, we have another option here. There's another more button. Click on that. So we could say 10 if we want. We'll just leave it at 5, just the default one. So what's the label for the first part and what's the label for the next one? So we'll just put never for, what a 1 would be, and a 5 would be, how about this one? Every day. All right. So that's pretty cool. Let's see what this looks like. So now I'm going to go up here and say preview. And now, again, since this is required, watch what happens. Where is my linear scale? How often do you use Google Drive? It's not there. It's in the next section. Okay, so in my preview, I can click on it. Aha. So now we're beginning to appreciate why you don't want to put required on any of the answers until you're completely done, because that's the only way you're going to be able to get to the next section to see it. So here's section 2. And how often do you use Google Drive? Okay, so never, well, every once in a blue moon. I sort of use it like once every week or 3, maybe I use it every week, or okay, here I use it every day. So we can see how we can begin to collect data just by changing things. And again, we can make this a 0, we can make this all the way up as high as a 10, or we could just make it a lower number so you just have like 3 choices. So depending on the type of question, it will determine what would make most sense as far as, how detailed you want to collect something. I think 5 probably does things pretty good. So if I were to check this and had that other one checked, I could submit it, we get an answer, but I don't want to do that. So I'm not going to clear the form this time. I'm going to leave that email. In fact, let's go back. I'm going to leave this one checked so I don't have to keep doing it, since we all understand what that looks like now. All right. So here we are. We're building out section 2. One of the things we have not used yet is duplicate. All right. So how often do you use Google Drive? Linear scale, 1 to 5, never, every day. We already have this set up the way that we want it. And I want to ask more questions about Google Apps, like Forms, like Docs, like Sheets. So, and before I do this, I'm just going to warn you, the other day I taught a class with this, and I was making copies of this very quickly and typing in the answer and making a copy very quickly. And because all of the clicks and all of the data entry that I'm doing has to go at near the speed of light in little 1s and 0s data packets through the browser across the internet to the Google server farms, it takes a second or 3 for it to get there and come back and reflect a difference. What I'm sharing with you is if you do things way too fast because you've done 1,000 times, sometimes those changes won't show up or reflect on what you're seeing on your user interface. So, but that's okay. I'm not going to do it super fast today. I'm just going to say duplicate. So again, we're in section 2, and we have one question, and it says Google Drive. Watch what it looks like when we duplicate. Now we have 2. So I'm going to scroll up a little bit. Here's where we were. We clicked this button here, duplicate, and then it created the identical one. And it still allows us to make some changes if we want. We're going to keep everything the same except for this. I'm just going to say docs. All right, that's pretty cool. And then now I'm going to say duplicate. So now I've got Drive and Docs, and I have a second Docs. So I can come up here, and we're going to change this one to, oh, I don't know, how about Sheets? So real quickly, you can get an appreciation for how quickly you can start to make changes. Now I've got Drive, Docs, Sheets. I got Sheets twice because I just copied this one, duplicated it. And so I can come in here, and now I can select that. And I can just put forms or something like that, and that'll be good for this example. All right. So, hey, let's go take a preview, see what it looks like. And again, this one's still checked, so that's the only required one. So here's all of the things that we had done so far. And remember, these are the answers that I had given before, and it saved it unless I clear the form. And then it goes back. I still have to select this one so I can get to the next section. But as you can see, it's not saving my answers anymore. So even though you're the creator of this, and even though you're just going to see a preview, when it opens up the preview, it acts exactly as if you were a respondent. And so you can actually start collecting data. And again, if you don't want to, don't actually click submit, or you will actually collect that data, and it will be part of all of the responses that you get. So let's go down here, and there we go to next, so we can get to the next section. How often do you use Google Drive? Never, every day. Docs, Sheets, Forms. So the idea is that duplicate can come in very handy if there's certain sections of your form that look similar. And so use that duplicate. It can actually come out and be very helpful. So let's get out of there, go back, and here we are down at the end. So just for fun, let's add another section. And just for fun, we'll call this section 3. In fact, I'm just going to call it section 3 practice. That'll work. All right, and I'll put a few dots in there just because you can. Just to point out that you can write whatever you want in there. Okay, great. And if I wanted to put another description here saying, okay, in this section, please give us your important details of your student or whatever. You can imagine how you could make that a little bit better. Let's go ahead and add a question, which will go right below that. And again, it goes by default to multiple choice. So we've kind of looked at all of these so far, but we haven't looked at multiple choice grid and checkbox grid. And so for this one, I want to show you an example of what that looks like, because if I try to just explain it to you or try to, create it on the page, it takes a little bit of time. But these are also very helpful when you're collecting data, because it gives you more choices than just multiple choice or a checkbox. If you put it in a grid, you're able to put a much more data on your question for them to respond to. So I have examples of these opened up right up here already in my little, I called it Z's. All right, so here I have an example of a multiple choice grid as well as a checkbox grid, and this is what it looks like. So if you're asking a question like, how much do you like these foods? And I just have listed here a couple different fruits or whatever, but I have some choices for each one. Not very much, an apple. How much do you like an apple? A little, I like it, absolutely love it, for all of those. So we can get a little bit more detailed information on a variety of topics, in this case, fruit, how much we like them. But here's something you need to pay attention to. Because we're in preview mode, and we can take a look at how this works. If I say, oh, bananas, oh, I don't like it very much. Oh, well, wait, hold on. There was a time ago when I found out they had potassium, and you know what? So I started to really like it. In fact, I absolutely love it. So as you can see, the respondents can change their answers anytime they want, but they're limited to only one answer, just like multiple choice was, okay? But this is multiple choice in a grid, so we have more options of what to ask. If we go down here to the multiple choice checkboxes or whatever, then we can take a look at this. It says, how much do you like these subjects at school? Math. Oh, I don't like math. Oh, wait, then I remembered that I kind of like math because it allows me to check out my bank accounts and see how much money I have. And Well, I'm thinking now that I probably really like it. In fact, you know what? Math allows me to be able to earn more money at work and all this stuff, so I really love it. So we can see the problem here already, or the difference, I should say. Multiple choice grid, you can only select one at a time. If it's a checkbox grid, you can select as many as you want. So now we need to think about what kinds of questions are you asking and what kind of data do you want to collect? Do you want to allow them to have more than one response? In something like this question here with these topics and these potential answers, that doesn't make much sense. But there might be an example or something that you want to something you can think of that this would make sense. So say, you know, I don't know, you could think of what you're using for the school psychologist, but the idea is simply this. The nuance of the checkbox grid is that you can check more than one, and you can keep checking as many as you want. If you get too many, you change your mind, you can deselect them and all of that. That's pretty cool. But the one up here, which is multiple choice grid, you can only select one at a time. So I'm going to go ahead and clear that. All right. And I'm going to get out of that one right there. And we're going to go back to our practice, because here we were with this section 3, and we wanted to try out a multiple choice grid and checkbox. And I could certainly click on that. And then it'll allow me to ask the question and figure out what the columns are going to say. Like, I don't like it at all. I like it a little bit. I kind of like it. And I really super duper love it. You can start adding all that. And then all the different topics that you're, asking these questions to, you can just start to fill it out. But I am going to throw that in the trash. So now it's just section 3. Instead of adding a question, I'm going to, let's find it, import questions right here. All right. So here we go. It's going to look for all of my Google Forms that I have worked with. And now you can see why I called that section ZZZZZ, so it's easy to understand. But I can go get questions from any one of these other surveys that I have. But this is the one with the multiple choice grid as well as the checkbox grid. And so this is the one that I want. And we know that it has both of those. So I'm going to click once there. And then, oh yeah, Mr. J said you could double click. That usually works in almost every place. So now we see this import questions dialog box open up, or a window pane. And so we have a couple choices. Select all, which means both the top one, the multiple choice grid, and the checkbox grid below it. Or maybe we just want this one. Or maybe we want both. Or maybe we keep changing our mind. Or we can just use any one of these. All right. And now we're going to have to select this. I actually want both of these imported to section 3. So I'm going to say, okay, go. And now there it is, right there in section 3. If I want to move these things around, I certainly can. All right, let's just go up to preview real quick. So here we go again. Required, it's already checked, so it's going to allow us to get to our next section. There's section 2, we had all those, and we go to the next one. And there it is. We've just imported those, and it's now part of section 3. So that's pretty cool. Let's get out of here and go back to practice. So basically, we've looked at all of these except for date and time, and I'm going to show you examples of those in one that's already done. But you can see there's not that many choices, and yet those choices all are pretty significant, because we know multiple choice, we can only select one option. Check boxes, we can select all of them or none of them or 1 or 3 of them. We can have others in this one and others in check boxes, but we don't get that in the drop-down menu. We can also have a place where people can upload files. You might be collecting data from other school psychologists or teachers or school sites or whatever. Have a place where you can do that, and you can determine what kind of file it is. Is it an image? Is it a doc? Is it a PDF? Our example we used was a PDF. Linear scale, that was pretty straightforward. We've just seen these, and again, we're going to see examples of those in just a little bit. And so, wow, that happened pretty quick. So we don't have any responses yet to this, so we're going to save that towards the end with another form that we have, but we are going to look at settings real quick. And then again, the settings are just for this practice form, the one that we've been working on. So the first choice we have up here is make this a quiz. Well, if you're a teacher or an instructor or a professor or something like that, and you want to test someone's ability to, display what they've learned, yeah, you can make this a quiz, and you can give point values to each question. And depending whether they answer it right or wrong, they'll get points built up and you get a readout and all that. That's great, but that doesn't really pertain to what we're doing. So we're going to skip that. So responses, manage how responses are collected and protected. So this is the one that has changed recently. So right now it says verified. What are the other options? Verified just means that there's that checkbox up there saying, hey, just know we're collecting your sandy.net email address, and you have to check that box to verify that you've kind of seen it. But what are the other options? Don't collect it at all, and responder input. Let's just try it real quick. Don't collect. Okay. So now let's go back to questions. And here we are at the top. And if we go to preview, you don't see any box appear that says, hey, your email is being collected or anything, because we selected that one thing in settings saying don't collect. All right, again, we saw verified, and just to go back and show you again, that's the one where it's got the little checkbox thing here or whatever. Okay, let's get out of there, and let's try the last one real quick. Responder input, which is kind of interesting. I'm not really excited about that one, but let's just see what that looks like. So it's going to ask email, and it's going to automatically put it in there, but I'm pretty sure it's going to let me, kind of put whatever I want in there like that. And let's see if it'll let me go to the next section. We know that's not a real one. Yep, it took us to section 2. So the verified, it allows them to make some changes if they want, but they have a choice to do that. So that's interesting. So let's go back up to settings real quick. So we can see the different ones that we have. We're just going to leave it at verified for right now. So let's see what other options there are. This is all of settings right here. And there are drop-down menus. We're going to take a quick peek at some of those. Allow response editing. That means they can change their answer after they have made the answer. We could select that if we want to allow them. This is after being submitted, going back and actually changing it. And it will change it on the spreadsheet where all the answers are selected. So that's one option. And again, some of these are new. They just keep showing up. They're always adding new stuff to it. And that's just the nature of Google. So restrict to users in San Diego Unified. Okay, so if you're trying to collect data from parents, you don't want to select this one because they might have a Gmail account or a Yahoo account like I have. And so there's a consideration right there. Limit to one response. There are lots of reasons why you wouldn't want to do that. I'm going to show you in a little bit emergency contact form, which you fill out each time for each student you have. And so if you've got 2 kiddos in elementary school, you're going to fill it out at least twice. If you've got another one in middle school and another one in high school, you're going to fill it out 4 times. You definitely don't want that selected. So remember the file uploads? We had that choice. It gives you additional choices here, all the way up to a terabyte to collect everything. So if you're sending out this, if you're allowing just like 10 megabytes for the PDFs, but you're sending it out to 10,000 people, you might want to select this big number here, 1 terabyte. Remember that a megabyte, you need 1,000 of them to make 1 gigabyte, and you need 1,000 gigabytes to make a terabyte. So we're talking about millions, billions, and trillions. So this is all of the files that you're going to be able to collect. So you get to select that there and figure out what you want to do. So that's pretty cool. So presentation, manage how the form responses are presented. Let's take a look at our options here. Oh, okay, we got a whole bunch of them. So look at that. That little drop-down menu just expanded quite a bit as far as presentation. So show progress bar. Okay, we haven't seen that yet. We're going to see it in some of the other ones. I'm going to go ahead and select it. Shuffle question order. Oh, yeah. So that's, again, if we want to make this a quiz. All right. Confirmation message. Your response has been recorded. Maybe you want to edit this and say, we are so grateful for you filling this out. It's going to help us, San Diego Unified School Psychologists, have a better understanding of what your needs are, something like that. Thank you so much for filling this out. You could write a book if you want. All you have to do is edit that and change it, but this is the default one. We'll leave it as that for now. Show link to submit another response. Again, if we're having emergency contact form and one for each student. We're going to want to have a little link where they can click on it and start over for the next one. That's pretty cool. Show results summary. Well, that's pretty interesting. Let's just go ahead and click on that and see what that does. And restrictions, disable autosave for all respondents. Okay, so you saw when I was going back and forth between preview and then building and then preview, and it was keeping some of my answers there where I just had hit the keyboard a bunch of times and had a bunch of letters out there. That is kind of an automatic thing. If you don't want those to be saved from each time you go back to it, then you'd have to select this one here, but we're just going to leave that the way it is. Form defaults, be careful. Every time you open up a new form, whatever you do in defaults, that's what's going to happen every time. So collect email addresses by default. That's why our practice one went straight to this, because that's what I had selected in defaults. Maybe you might want to do this and then later go back and just each form, go ahead and check and make it a verified thing or whatever. I'm going to leave that one the same. And then question defaults. This is also important. Make questions required by default. That's the last button you want to select, because if you're doing multiple sections and you're doing preview to see, it's going to always make every question required. And every time you go to look at it, you want to go see what it looks like in section 3, you got to answer every question all the way through. So I wouldn't recommend doing that one. Could you go back at the end of working on your form, make them all required? Yeah, but not right here. You'd want to do that where? You'd want to do that in each individual question. We'll show you that again. So there are settings, pretty straightforward. And again, any section, how about name? Boom, required. How about this one? Boom, required. All we're going to do is click on it. I'm not clicking on it right now just to show you what that looks like. All right. So,
Mr. J, could I
yes.
ask a question? This is something that has caught numerous of us up over the years. So when you go to settings and you're going to send this out to different respondents, could be parents that aren't in our, our sandy.net, et cetera. That's really important, that one, if you could click on it again under settings and
Yeah.
then show us, drop down and show us where it says responses, the respondents outside our organization. So that's kind of in the middle,
Okay.
top middle. Where is that
So
one?
let's see.
It's restrict to users in San Diego Unified. Okay. So make sure before you send this out to parents or anyone outside our district, that you unclick it so that anyone can answer it, because otherwise they won't have access. So an example, we do a lot of trainings and sometimes we invite other people from other organizations or districts. If we don't click that, then the only people that can answer one of our surveys or even sign in are our own district people. So we're
Absolutely
like,
right.
what's happening? What's happening? Why is this always happening? Some people are, you see the chat and it's like, I can't get in. And then we go back in. So usually that button is the culprit for numerous things, including trying to get forms out to parents. If you've ever tried to develop one on this Google Forms, because students may be able to respond if they're in their sandy.net account, but if they're not, a lot of kids are on their own. So just make sure you go in there and you unclick it if it's going to be for people outside of just our own staff, department, or district. So anyway, I just wanted to reiterate that because it just, things fall apart, obviously, right away when we don't do it.
Thank you, Diana. That was a perfect example of the benefits and also the challenges if you have that selected. So you're absolutely right. You just have to consider who is the audience, who is going to be the respondents, who's going to be needing access to this. And so that particular one, restricting to San Diego Unified, is very important. So might want to just turn that one off. I'll go ahead and turn it off just for fun. Perfect. Thank you for adding that. All right, so let's go back to questions real quick. And we did a few settings, things like show progress bar and stuff. And so I want to see what that looks like. So I'm going to go over here to preview mode. And again, indicates required questions. So now for me to get to section 2, I got to make sure that that's selected. Saving, draft saved. Name, phone number, favorite TV show. Not sure why the school psychologists are asking about favorite TV show, but I'm not going to go into your world and try to understand exactly what information is important. Okay, there's my silly joke. So we look down here, before we go to the next section, look at this. We've got a progress bar now. It says page 1 of 3. Remember we had 3 sections? Okay, that's pretty cool. And so when we go to section 2, and we see all those Google Drive Docs Sheets questions that we had in the linear form, now it's showing us our progress. We're now 2/3 of the way through because we just completed page 2 of 3. And when we go to next, and then we get to see the multiple choice grid and the checkbox grid. That's pretty cool. And it shows us that it's all done. All we have to do now is click submit. All right. So if I want to, I could click submit, but it would save all those answers. And again, I don't want to do that. But we have very quickly well, I've done a lot of talking, but if you were just making this and you've done this a few times, this would have taken you 10, 15, 20 minutes to do this entire form. And naturally, you would have asked better questions than what I did, but you can kind of see how all of that works. Now let's go into a little bit deeper of what we can do here. So here's, it's already selected, it says phone number, right? We're asking for their phone number. And if we wanted to have more details, like not just what is your phone number, but what is your work number or your home number, then we want to be able to add more information here, because right now it's just phone and you put in the answer. In fact, real quick, we'll just go to preview and look down at phone. That's it. Phone. What's your phone number? And then you got to put in your answer. You're not sure if they're asking for work or whatever. So let's go back and see what other options we have. So we've looked at required. We know that. Tossing things out, deleting them, making duplicates. We can add a picture. We'll see examples of that later. We can change the type of question it is, but short answer is perfect. But now we have this little button here. We call it a more button. It's an ellipsis. Anytime you see an ellipsis, 3 dots, either vertically or horizontally, it means that there's more things available to you. We can see that right up here. We're going to look at that later on. So I'm going to click on it. Now, this is a short answer, which is different than a multiple choice grid, which is different than paragraph, which is different than multiple choice or checkboxes. So each type of question is going to have different options available to it. But let's see what's in short answer. All right, description. Okay, let's start with that one, and then we're going to go to response validation, but description. Oh, okay, so put an extra thing here. And so then I could type out right here, please provide your work number or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And that way they know they're supposed to put their work phone number there. Or maybe we could just as easily say, please provide your home phone number or whatever, or the best number to get you at when your kiddo's at school. Maybe that's a cell phone number. We could put extra information in the details there. And how did we get that? Just by selecting that. We can see there's a checkbox there. Okay. So what's this? Response validation. This is a tool that's going to somehow control what people are able to put within reason. And we'll see some examples here. So response validation. Okay. So here's one parameter. We'll take a look at that. Our choices are number, text, length, regular expression. Okay. Well, it's a phone number, so that makes sense. So we'll call it a number. All right. Greater than. Let's look at these parameters. Okay. Greater than or equal to, less than. None of this makes any sense for a phone number. Equal to, between, not between. How about just this one is a number? Or how about, oh, remember a number could be like 2.5667 point, whatever. How about a whole number? That sounds more like a phone number. All right. And then this one's grayed out because of the choices of number and making it a whole number. And that was our response validation that we did for this one. So let's go over here to preview real quick, just to show you what that response validation looks like. Let's try that again. Preview. All right. Phone number. And remember, we want it to be your work phone number. Okay, here's the answer. Ready? Oh, well, why won't it take my phone number? Oh, because we had the response validation saying just numbers. Oh, okay. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. I thought it wanted to know my favorite Icelandic name. All right, so let's see. How about a number? And here's a point that I'm going to make. It doesn't know what's a real phone number, what's not. But the response validation is absolutely going to look for, in this case, a whole number or whatever. And then just for fun, I'll put a couple H's in there. Oh, must be a whole number. Oh, okay. So we can see how that response validation is working to a point. Is that going to make sure that we absolutely have, a correct phone number? No, it's up to them to fill it out. And as you can see, that's ridiculous as far as the phone number, but it accepted it because of the response validation. So let's go back to where we were. And again, that was the response validation that we selected. And we had all these different choices. We had, text length, regular expression, whole number, greater than, less than. So depending on how you're trying to validate the response, you have all these different choices. And just remember that you can see if that's going to help you at some point. Well, at the very least, this one, it's helping the respondent pay attention to the fact that, oh yeah, it's a phone number. I've got to put a phone number in there. They're not writing something different. So let's check out email. So now we're in email. It's also a short answer. And remember down here, we've got descriptions. And so again, if we want more details, we can ask descriptions. So maybe we're asking for a work email. And so I could put that in the description there, or whatever, and type something out that makes sense to help them figure that out. Or maybe it's a personal email we're looking for. And then check out response validation. And again, we're asking about emails. So emails have numbers in it, but it also has text in it. It has all kinds of stuff. So it turns out if you want to just do the response validation, you got to put that on text. And then contains. Now that we're in this category of text, we have some different options here. We don't see greater than, less than, because of course that dealt with numbers. But contains, doesn't contain. Oh, email stuff. Okay. So if you were asking for sandy.net email address, then you might want to put contain sandy.net, at the end. It has to contain that or whatever. Or if you absolutely don't want them to put that email, you want to put something else, you could say doesn't contain at sandy.net or something. But for our purposes, we're just going to say email. All right. So text, email, and let's see what this looks like in preview mode. So again, just like the phone numbers, it doesn't know what's a real phone number and what's not. It also isn't going to know what an email is. Okay. So I'm just going to start putting stuff down. There it is. There's my email address. Okay. Please send me an email. Oh, look, favorite color. I love blue, especially after all this gray stuff. Wait, what? Must be a valid email. Oh dear. Okay. I've got to fix this. So here's what you need to know. It does not know what a real email address is. It's not going to send an email to verify that, someone has an account or whatever, but it is looking for a few things. And the first thing it's looking for is an ampersand. What is an ampersand? It's that little A with the circle on it. And then it's going to look for like something like a .com or a .net or a something. Remember, there's so much out there. There's .org, there's .tv, there's so many things that we can't even imagine. So if I just simply put a dot in there, it's now going to allow me to move on. Clearly, this is not a real email, but all it's looking for is an @ and it could say sandy.net or .com or org or anything at all. So I can put in whatever I want as far as an email address. As long as I have the @ and a dot there, it's then in the format. So how well does email validation work? Not very well, especially if someone understands that they could put in whatever fake one they wanted to, which is why it's a good idea in settings to be able to go and say, automatically validate an email. So you collect an email automatically. And I have some data I can show you some of these examples up here in just a second. All right. So we have spent a little bit of time and we've pretty much gone through all of these options here. We've checked out the different short answers, paragraphs, different things like that. There is more here that's available, some subtle differences or whatever, but I think it's best to show you in real examples instead of my little pretend one here. So here is one that was created at some point ago. And I already have it in display mode, so we can see what it would look like for the purpose of respondent. So I'm not a school psychologist, but I am a trainer. So let's just take a look at this one here. Thank you for supporting the IT training department, structural technology, blah, 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 blah. Indicates required. Oh yeah, there it is. Yep, it's acknowledging that this one is required. Okay, so for me to be able to get through this, let's see how many sections there are. Oh, there's only one section. Okay, this one's not required, that one's not required, this one is. This one's required. Okay, so we can already see what this looks like. Let's just take a quick look at it. So automatically collect emails, that's always a good idea in my opinion. So what is your name? Again, it doesn't know if it's a real name or not, but it is going to have you put something there. And so here's an example of a drop-down menu. And this would this be a paragraph or would this be a short answer? It's a short one because we only see a small little bar as opposed to all the way across. So here's the drop-down menu. Which educational environment do you work in? So is it elementary, middle, high, ed center, charter, other? We can pick whatever you want. So you can see that I already have some answers that were selected in here before, and that's because I've gone to this before, and in settings, I allowed those answers to stay there. Remember, we had that toggle switch where we could say, nope, if you leave and come back, you have to start over. So let's just clear the form real quick. Clear the form. And all it's doing is taking all my answers away that I've given already, so we can start fresh. So I want to click that one. What is your name? Again, it doesn't know what's real, what's not. Choose one of these. Let's say I work at a high school. That sounds like fun. What is your position? And actually, I'm a super duper something or other, and this is what I do. And I'm the only one in the district that does that. And in fact, it takes a lot to really explain that. So maybe this question should have been a paragraph one because I can only see that much. So again, this is a short answer, and it doesn't care what you write there. You can write whatever you want. Which training did you attend? Okay, so we've got intro to Google Apps. We've got Drive, Docs, Sheets, Forms, all the way down to the Microsoft stuff, Open Lab, other, so we have some choices there. Remember, drop-down menu doesn't allow you to type anything in. If we wanted them to be able to select one of these, or if it wasn't an exhaustive list, we wanted them to be able to write something in, it would have to be what? It would have to be not a drop-down menu, but it would have to be either a multiple choice with the other selected when we made it, or a checkbox with the other selected. But again, drop-down menu won't allow you to do that. So here's our linear scale questions. How useful was this training for you? Not very useful, very useful. And so you can imagine, do I want 10 choices, 3 choices, 5 choices? How do you want to collect your data? And this is important because when we get to analytics in just a moment of what the responses look like as we start to get to other parts of our form, that all of this will become relevant, and you'll see what I mean in just a moment. So look at this. This is clearly a paragraph one. It says, how will you use what you learned from attending this workshop? And so you could put a big old paragraph there saying that, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, whatever. The same thing for this one. What other trainings you like to see in the future? How can we better meet your training needs? Whatever. So these are all the questions. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then this one right here is going to be kind of like the 9th one. So when someone answers all this, it's going to end up in a spreadsheet. So now we know we're going to have at least 9 columns. One column will have the email address, then this question, then this question, then this question, and with the various responses for each row will be a different respondent in order. So whoever filled it out first, they would be in row 1, and the next person row 2, and we're going to see that in just a second. So this is just a simple, silly example of something that I might use for where I'm at. Now, it's very basic. It's only one section, but we can make things a lot more sophisticated. And so I'm going to go to this one here called Emergency Contact Form or Contact Information Survey. And remember, this is something you're going to want to, it says right there, remember that description that helps people understand what they're doing? Make sure you fill this out for each student in your family. So, wow, this looks really simple. It's not very long. It says language preference. Oh, okay. So depending on what language is your preference for speaking, you could select one. So I'm just going to go ahead and select English and then go down here and say next and see what happens. Okay, emergency contact information in English. Please complete each section below. All right, this makes sense. Student name, birthday. Remember in the choices of questions, let's go back to here. You had that option down there for date and time. Now you're seeing an example of that real quick. So, oh, wrong one, this one here. So this is what that would look like. And then I just put student birthday. And so now they could click on this calendar and then they could, change all these things and put the birth date up there. Or they could just type in, whatever they want to. So that's pretty cool. That's that date one. So student grade level. Now this is interesting. We made this and you have choices, right? But this is a checkbox. So remember, if you do have a checkbox, you're giving the respondent the opportunity to click everything. So what would be a better choice for this one? Would be multiple choice. So maybe when this was made, that individual didn't know that, or maybe there's a reason that they want to be able to check all of these. So this should have been multiple choice, but it's actually a checkbox multiple choice. All right, simple enough. So name of parent or guardian. This is clearly a short answer because we see the little short bar there. Home address, home phone number. Let's just try this real quick. Oh, see, it's got the response validation going on. It has to be a whole number. Oh yeah, I forgot. Okay, so cell phone number. Let's try this one. Oh, must be a whole. So you can see how that response validations could help you a little bit. Is it really going to know if it's a cell number or home number? No. How about email address? Okay. Okay, there's my email address. Oh, must be valid email. Oh yeah, I've got to add that other stuff there. So there's that and a bunch more things. And then there's a dot and then a couple more things there. Okay, there's my email address. So again, it doesn't know what a real email address is. It's just looking for the ampersand and like a dot with some stuff before and after it. So interesting. Could that be helpful? I suppose. This is why I prefer to have the emails selected automatically. So I'm so grateful a few years ago they put the automatic email collection one in there. So name of emergency contact, that's pretty straightforward. Contact phone number, so on and so forth. Does your student have any important health concerns that you would like the school staff to know about? Oh yeah, if Billy eats a peanut, his head will swell up or something. So please be careful of that or whatever. Thank you for filling this out. Remember, it's for fill one out for each student in your family. And so if I click submit and I have that thing selected to like a button provided to like do the form again, it would show up. I don't actually want to, this isn't a real one. This is one that I created. So I'm just going to go ahead and clear the form. But you can see now how different selections in settings, as far as, providing a progress bar can be helpful if you have multiple sections. Having a little link down there where you can go directly to a brand new form, in this case, emergency contact form, so you can fill one out for multiple students in the district. That could be helpful. So let's start over again. So let's go to Russian here. Why not? So when we click next, you think it's going to go to a Russian thing? And if so, why? Let's figure this out. Okay. So please appreciate that when I created this example that I don't speak Russian, but just so you do know, in case you didn't already, you probably already do, our school district has a translation department. What does that mean? That means if this was a real survey for whatever department or school that I'm at, I could submit this to them and say, hey, I need all of these different, let's go back. I need all of these different languages. I got English covered, but I need Spanish, Tagalog, French, and Russian, and maybe 5 or 6 more. I need you to take this form right here and translate it into Russian, Tagalog, whatever. And so they would do that for you. And then you could have all of these questions in whatever language it was. And so how does that work? As soon as they select whichever one they want, they're going to go to the section that is that language. So for my example, since I don't have those languages and I didn't want to bother that department, I'm sure they're very busy in our district because we have such great diversity within all of our 270 plus schools. But just pretend these are all in Russian, and that's why I put Russian there. So it's the exact same thing, all of the same questions. And so you could think about this section is, for all intents and purposes, exactly the same one as English. The only difference that I did was put Russian up here so that I knew that this was the section for Russian. And so think about when you're copying like a question, you can also copy sections as well. And so that's pretty cool. I'm going to go back real quick. And so if I just, let's say Tagalog, if I select that one, then it's going to take me to the Tagalog section. And again, if I had this translated by the district, it would be in whatever that language was. whatever those words would be, but it's exactly the same one. So for the purposes of this one, I just made copies of each section and then just changed this part right here. This is pretty helpful to be able to have different languages and all of that. I'm going to go back one more time, make sure the form is cleared. Yep. And there we are. So how did we do that? This looks like multiple choice because we see these little choices here. And if I click this one, can I select another one? No. If those were checkboxes, then that wouldn't work because I could select more than one. So this looks like multiple choice. Saving, draft saved. So let's go to creating this. So here we see this first part is section 1 of 6. There's 6 sections here. Okay, so this is what we saw before. Let's see what the next section looks like. Okay, so this is the English one. Section 2 is English. Student name, birth date, all of those different questions that we saw. So what's section 3? Oh, that's the Russian one. All right. And then we keep going down, and we're going to see Spanish and then French and then Tagalog or whatever. And so those are all different sections. So let's go back to the very first section. And this is what? This is multiple choice. So I'm going to click on it. And whoa, this looks a lot different than what we saw before. Yeah, it's multiple choice. You recognize all of these different ones that are here. It's clearly multiple choice. All right. But look, it says go to section 2. So if a respondent selects English, it's going to send them to section 2. Why? Because that's the English one. If somebody selects Spanish, it's going to go to section 4 because that's where Spanish is. Tagalog, section 6, French 5, and Russian 3. Well, that's pretty cool. So how is it we were able to do that? Remember I said depending on which type of questions you're using, when you go down to this More button here, different things are available. So not only is there a description and shuffling the order if you're doing a quiz, but it says go to section based on answer. And that's very helpful. And that one is checked. And so that means that I can set this up. And let's take a look. So here's the first one. I have right now selected go to section 2, English, which makes sense because that's English. But here's a drop-down menu. Let's see what the options are. How many sections do we have? 6. So there it is. All 6 are available. So I just have to find the one that says English. So when you name a section, be sure to include some information that's going to help you keep things straight. If just all sections say emergency contact information and they don't have the language, that could get very confusing unless you've written down which number is, which language or whatever. But again, so this first one, English, we want them to go to the English one. And so that's why the English one's selected. And if we go down here to French, that's section 5. That's why the section 5 one is selected. And that's pretty cool. So this is how we did this. Now here's the deal. This particular go to section based on response or answer is only available in multiple choice. You're not going to find that in checkboxes. And we discussed the reason why. You can't go to multiple sections at the same time by checking more than one language. You just have to select one. Multiple choice is clearly the right one. So checkboxes won't work. And if I were to check that, I'm going to do this just real quick just to show you. Checkboxes. Uh-oh. I'm in trouble now because now it's checkboxes. And so we'll just go to preview real fast. All right. And what's your preferred language? Oh, Tagalog, French, whatever. Next. Where's it going to go? It's going to go to the next section just by default, even though I selected those other ones. Okay, I'm in trouble now. So I got to fix this. So let's see how fast we can fix this. First of all, I'll just clear the form. Yeah, we're going to clear the form. Get rid of all those answers. And I had opened up another tab here for the preview. So I'm going to go back to the building part. And so I don't want checkboxes. I want multiple choice because that way I can tell it where to go. Oh no, because I switched it, it's erased all of the places where it's going to go. Let's make sure it's still turned on. No, it's not turned on. So I'm going to select this one, but now I have to choose it. No big deal. Watch this. This first one's English, right? Boom, done. What's the next one? Spanish. Spanish, boom, done. What's the next one? It's Tagalog. No problem. Boom, done. What's the next one? French. Boom, done. Just clicking away. Russian, where is it? There it is right there. I'm done. And so now, when I go back to preview mode, it's already set up. If I want to go to the Spanish one, assuming it was already translated, And this would say nombre de estudiante. There you go. And I don't know how to say that. That's okay. So anyway, this would be the Spanish section. So we fixed it. So just that quickly, I can go in and fix it if I understand the nuances of how Google Forms works. And remember, each type of question can have different choices here. Almost all of them have a description, but this one in particular is really important because it goes to section based on that. So that's pretty cool.
No question, but I love it.
Okay, so do you feel like you're kind of getting a little bit of an understanding of some of the nuanced aspects of forms?
Yes, this is
Yay.
really,
Okay.
it's kind of exciting, and we have a few examples of forms in our site Google Drive in different folders. So at some point, maybe you'll just mention how you can make a copy of something that's already made that's within our department and then kind of edit or zhuzh it for yourself. I have one for a behavior assessment we do, and I
Uh-huh.
can see that maybe there's a few little tricks that could be applied. So maybe the next training that you do, which is the follow-up to this, it's really a Q&A kind of asking your questions about things that you're trying to figure out and work with after this training that pertain to forms. We can go over some changes that might make things better or clearer or better data for us to use in the end. So
You
that's the
bet.
next training. Yeah. So just a little plug, but thank you.
Perfect. And since Diana, you mentioned making a copy, it couldn't be easier. Here I am in the user interface from building out my emergency contact. And remember the ellipsis, whether it's vertical or horizontal, is a more button. And let me click on that again. And so look, make a copy. It's right there. And just to show you what that looks like, I'm going to say make a copy. And remember, what's the name of this? Emergency Contact Survey. So when you make a copy, you're probably familiar with this. It's going to, oh, it's going to give you the option to rename it, but it's by default, it's going to say copy in front of emergency contact survey. And I can choose where it goes. We'll just do this for right now. Make a copy, opens up a new tab. This is where we were, and it's not changing the original one. It just simply made a copy of it, and now it's called copy. So I can go in here and I can start changing everything and doing all this stuff or whatever. With that copy, they're two separate forms, if you will. So just keep that in mind. Um, all right, I can see we're going through some time here. So let's, I'm going to bring this up just as an honorable mention. So this is a real survey, it actually is a copy of it, that I was asked to make for the, can't remember which department. Uh, one of the main,
It's a special ed department. The PIF is a paraprofessional that works with kids in
perfect.
special ed.
That's who it was for, but the person that asked me to do this was one of the area superintendents over, like learning and whatever. I don't know. I don't understand how the whole hierarchy of the district works, except for somebody way up there near the top said, "Hey, we need a survey, and it has to do some very specific stuff." And they were asking for all kinds of things. And boy, did Mr. J have a chance to learn how to use Google Forms. So the first thing I'll point out too, look, we got a progress bar, 1D4 sections. All right. And so what I did with this copy is what they wanted is they wanted every single question to be required. And so to be able to demonstrate this to you all, I made sure I went in and cleared all that out so we can kind of see what it is. So here's where you put your name, and notice full name. It's bolded. That's the way they wanted it, so it was easier to answer. Full name, school, so you don't have to like read everything. You could just kind of do this quickly. And so they would put their answers there. They're required, so they don't know if it's their real name. They don't know if it's a real school, but it's just going to be letters, right? And so this is page 2 of 24. And I'll tell you right now, here's a heads up. We're not going through this linearly. If you answer a certain multiple choice question, it might take you to section 20. And depending on how you answer that one, it might take you back to section 6. When I said this was very complex, it is. But let's just start off with the basics. Contact information. Boom. Next section. What is your training availability? What is your minimum day? And again, I love how different parts, are bolded or whatever to make it a little bit easier to kind of see it. So be thinking about what you're doing. So there's a little drop down menu. Just got to pick one of those 5 days. That makes sense. Does your school have a second minimum day? So If you don't have one, you need an option that says, no, I don't have one, because this is important information for collecting this. When are your students dismissed on minimum days? And then you've got to select, what that is, because this is going to determine, in this case, the PIFs when they're going to have access to certain trainings or whatever. And again, all of these in the real one would have been required. And then they get to this next section. We're in section 3 already. Preferred training, which day would you prefer to attend? No preferences to all the other days. What would be your second choice? Wow, they're really giving them all kinds of options. Remember I said I would show you the time one? We saw the date one. Here's the time one. What is the best starting time for you? And so you can make some choices here, and then you can just, type in the time or whatever. And if you put like 16 numbers here, it's not going to accept it because it's automatically make sure it looks like a time thing or whatever. What's your second choice for start time? Now we're on page 4. Let's go to the next one. Oh, we've seen this before, haven't we? Here's an example of multiple choice grid. How often do you use the following Google applications? Google Drive, never, rarely, weekly, daily, okay? For all of these. And remember, I'm just gonna pretend I'm filling this out. Because it's multiple choice grid, remember we said you can only select one? Okay, that's cool. By the way, when I made this several years ago, this is where I learned, Diana, the subtle nuance that the checkbox one allows you to do more than one. I had switched it to checkboxes because I thought checkboxes looked better than circles. And then that particular person, the higher up, said, this isn't working because you can click on never, rarely, weekly, and daily. And I went, wait, what? And I had to go in and understand the nuance that the checkboxes allows you to check more than one. So that was important. How often you use Microsoft applications, same thing. So now we're going to go to the next one. And at some point, here we go. So it says, we're talking about Google Drive. Do you use Google Drive in your role as a paraeducator? Because this is multiple choice and that extra feature was selected, like based on answer, you go somewhere. If I say yes, and I go to next, watch where we go from page 6 to page 14. What would you like to see in a Google Drive training? Please, give us all this stuff or whatever you'd like to see in it. That's great. I'm going to go back. So now I'm going to say no. Remember, this is multiple choice. You can only select one. And instead of 14, watch where I go. I now go to the next page. What about Google Docs? And I'm going to say, well, probably go to the next one. If I say no, page 8. So it's jumping around. So again, you get to choose where you go based on answers. So I'll just tell you right now, with 24 sections, I literally had a big piece of paper with a pen, whatever, and I was crossing things out, writing down where things were. I had to have a flow chart to figure this out because it got very complex. But if you say yes to one of these, I'm not going to go to like the next one, page 8 or 9. I jump to page 16, where it says, what would you like to see and all of that. And so there would you put your answer. Of course, this was required as well, so you had to do it. But at some point, you would work yourself through all of the questions. There's section 11, 12, 13, 14, and you would end up getting to somewhere and then get towards the end. And I'm not going to spend the time to do it, but then the last part would be, is there anything else you'd like to see in trainings, whatever? And then thank you so much for all this. And you click submit. So the point of showing this, I'm going to clear the form. The point of showing you this is that it can get very complex. So you can jump from like page 2, if it's a multiple choice and you're saying which section you're going to go to, you can jump all the way to 24 if you want, or whatever, however you want to set it up. So that's a pretty cool thing. And I just wanted you to see how complex that would be. The other thing is, we talked about this the other day. There it is. This is one that I normally send out in our classes for Google Forms. And so it's just a practice one. And I realized at the very beginning of teaching Google Forms, especially during COVID, we could have as many as 100 people in our trainings. And the last thing I wanted is everybody to have their real email addresses exposed up on the screen or whatever, because this is the one that we are actually collecting responses for. This is where I get to show how responses are collected and all of that. So if you haven't seen this, I know we had talked about making this available, but basically this is what it looks like. We're in the respondent view, so we get to see it. There again, we know that it's collecting emails. You're gonna have to select that to be able to move on. What is your pretend name? It says, hello, my name is Fred Flintstone, what's yours? And again, it's just looking for pretend or whatever. your pretend department, what is your email address, and all of that. These are just examples of, there's 4 sections. Let's see if it'll let us do this. Okay, so it'll let us get to the next one. And it says, we're fishing for fun responses. What is your pretend role in the district? All right. So we know that some individuals at the district, they might work at both preschool and elementary, or preschool, elementary, and middle school. So you can see we have checkboxes here because you can have more than one. You also see pictures. Remember when we were choosing like multiple choice or checkboxes, we saw that little image, upload image thing. This is what it would look like. You go get a picture of preschoolers in this case, elementary school. Hopefully I got the ages right here, middle school or whatever. And then because it's checkboxes, I can have other, so that if I want to put an answer, somewhere else that I'm working, and again, this is just for fun. That's why it says Bedrock Elementary School. But it's checkboxes, so it allows you to do more than one. If you only want them to select one and still have a picture grid like this, then you'd have to use not checkboxes, but multiple choice with the circles or whatever. And so we remember doing the linear one. Remember, how often do you use Google Sheets? Once every 10 years, once every 10 seconds. Again, this is our for fun one. And you can select whichever one you want. And I use the duplicate thing and change Sheets to Drive, then duplicate it, and change Drive to Apps, and then duplicate it and change Apps to Docs, and so on and so forth to make this whole section right here. And so now we go to the next one. Pretend trainings, make a list of pretend trainings you want, and they can write out their answer. And we can see by having this long line, it's a paragraph. They can write everything they want to write in there. They're not limited. And so then here's the last part, use your imaginations. What would you like to be? And you could write down whatever you want to be. All right. And then remember we said we had the option for them to have a copy of their responses. That's what the toggle looks like. And here's the progress bar. And then we could simply click submit, and it would go somewhere. I'm going to clear this form. Clear it, because I don't want that to end up where I'm at. I am going to go to the part where we can get to it. So here we have the questions. We're in the building mode, the user interface, where we're able to see all of our toolbar here and all of the sections out there as we're building these. And we can, make these required, not required, all of those things. We've already been to settings, but look at this. We have 105 responses to this. Why? Because I've been using this for classes for the last 4+ years. All right. And so let's check out what that section looks like. All right. So the very first question was, what is your pretend? I'm sorry. This gets a little bit confusing. I apologize, because what I had done is I started this like 4 or 5 years ago. And so I had questions in there like, what is your email address? And I said, do a pretend one, which is why you see I am Superman at Say.net, Barney B. Rubble, whatever. That was a pretend one. And we have 105 responses there. Let's go back up to the top. When Google made it available for you to automatically collect email addresses, whatever time that was, these are the ones that were selected right here. Oh, and look, Diana filled one out. Excellent. So again, if we make it automatic that we get the email addresses, Diana doesn't get to change that because it's just going to show up. And those are the real ones. So again, that was a feature that showed up a couple of years ago, and this form is older than that. So I actually had a question that said, what is your email address? So this is the automatic one. So this is actually question 1. What is your pretend name? And it was the one where it had the Fred Flintstone, right? So one of the persons said Three-Toed Freddy, Angel, Betty Boop. And then what the heck is this? Well, remember, name is the short answer. Mr. J, that's me, wanted to make sure to know how many characters you can put in there. So I copied and pasted 10,000 characters, and that includes the little spaces between them, to see if a short answer would take it. Sure enough. And I'll just jump ahead and say paragraph will also take 10,000 plus characters. The difference is you only get to see in a short answer like 40 characters at a time, whereas the long answer, you'd see all of this in paragraph, I should say. And so that was just me doing that, just kind of pushing the limits of it to see what it could do. So Barney B. Rubble, I am Superman, 105. So what are we looking at here? We're in responses, and we're in the summary section. We could also go question by question, or we could go by individuals. We could go find Diana Peterson and see everything that she answered. Or we could just see what all different answers are for specific questions, but the summary has all of the questions. And again, this first one was automatic because we selected that in settings. So the very first question, what is your pretend name? There's 105 responses, and we can kind of toggle through all of these to see what all the different ones are. The next one was pretend department. You know what it is? 105 responses for that one. And what is your email address? 105 responses for that. And it'd be kind of hard to figure out which one was Diana's, but that's okay. But look at this. What is your pretend role in the district? Remember we had preschool, elementary, middle school. We had those cute little pictures of the kiddos. 99 people responded to that. So already you can see we don't have 105. A couple of them said, okay, I'm done filling this out, I guess. But 99 did. And out of those 99, 15 of the 99 selected preschool, or 15.2%. Elementary, that was the biggest one. We can see right here in our analytics, 31 of the respondents out of 99 did that, or 31%. And then middle, high school, and there's Bedrock Elementary. And look at all these. Only one did this one did that one. Remember we had the other option? So these are all the others. So one person, which represents roughly 1% of respondents, said Sunray Collector, Wrangler, Whoopee Department, you know, whatever. All of these different ones where they're able to add that in. But here's the analytics for this. And maybe I want to put this in a Google Doc and save it, or put it in a spreadsheet. Copy. That's pretty cool. Let's look at the next question. How often do you use Google Sheets? Remember, never, or once every 10 years, I think it was. And this was once every 10 seconds, trying to make it fun. And so out of 94 respondents, 24 said once every 10 years, and 13 respondents said once every 10 seconds. And there's the percentage points. And so that's for this particular question. Again, we want to put this in a spreadsheet somewhere in the analytics chart like this. Sure, we could do that. Google Drive, there's the answers to that. So here's the analytics. This is interesting. Google Apps, that's one that got added later. That's why there's 93 responses up there, and there's only 15 to this one. And apparently it got evenly matched. Out of 15, there's 3 from each one. So that's what that would look like. So again, analytics, that's pretty cool. Depending on the type of question, you can get that. So this was the pretend trainings. Remember the long answers where they could type out whatever they wanted? This person clearly typed out this first part, and then hit the return key and typed out another one, and whatever, to be able to present the response that way. So there's 86 of those. And again, we can toggle between all of these to see what they are. And some are pretty clever. Oh, there's that 10,000 thing again. All right. So that's the pretend trainings. And then what would you like to be when you grow up? These are pretty cute. Be the grand poobah, retired, president of the United States, much, much older, all kinds of good ones. And if we spend some time, we could probably find the one that Diana did in there. But we'll just leave it at that. So that's responses, but specifically under summary. So let's look at this one. Questions, just the same information we just saw, but presented different. So now we know there's 11 questions, and here's all 11 questions. The one you're not going to see there is the automatic email, but I do have one where they got to put in their pretend one. That's right there. And so if I just want to see what the answers are to any one of these, I could just click right there and we go straight to it. And then we can see that 26 people selected that one, 23 responded with that answer, so on and so forth. So we can do it question by question. We can toggle through them going back and forth this way, or we can just jump ahead by saying, okay, this is the one that I need. And then we can see who responded to what. Oh, and look at that. One person checked all of the boxes because it wasn't multiple choice. It was check boxes, and you can do that. So 2 people did those 2, and 1 person did those 2. And so then we've got 28 elementary, 9. So we can see how the responses set up question by question. We can see that. So let's look at individual real quick. So this is interesting. How many were there? 105. So if we knew what number Diana was, we could click on that and we would see just the answers for Diana's. I'm just clicking one here. Can't even say that. Eustachio. Okay, there we go. Village Elementary. And we can see what it looks like, what they filled out. And if you're paying attention, we see that it looks exactly like the user interface for the respondent. When they actually open up the form, they get to go to it, and this is what it looks like, and they can select all these things. And so again, we're in responses, but specifically, we're on number 57. And if we want to see a different number, we can go through it. So under responses, you have these choices. You have the summary with all of them, go question by question, or by individuals. All right. And when we're in individuals, here's just a warning for you, or a heads up. We see that we can print a response. Or if we want to toss out one of the individuals, we could do that. But if you print a response for an individual, know this, you're not going to get the spreadsheet version, which we'll see in a second, which is very compact and, all 105 respondents are on the spreadsheet, piece of cake. What you're going to get is everything you see here. So if I have a 6-inch color Fred Flintstone there, that's going to be almost all of page 1 with that answer. So be careful when you print out by individual. You're going to end up with, if you have 105 responses or respondents, and every one of them is going to have 10 or 11 pages of color stuff. You don't want to print that out. It's great to have that option, but since I have these color things in here, you could pretty much wipe out all the ink in your printer and use a lot of paper that's unnecessary. So where would we want to go to find the actual answers and something we could like make graphs out of, or use those details? It's right here in the Google sheet that it automatically makes, and I already have mine open, so I'm going to go straight to it. So now this is in a Google sheet. I did do some dolling up or make this a little bit better, some formatting. I made sure that row 1 had a little bit of background color in it. It's kind of a, what would that be? Like a light peach color or something. So it stands out. I also made it bold. I also locked it in place so that no matter how far down I went to see what the answers were to all the, remember 105 respondents, there's a lot of them. I wanted to make sure you could see all this. But let's go back and just see what we've got here. First thing you need to know is there's a timestamp. The very first person to fill this out was on the 15th of December, 2020. All right, that's three years and a little bit ago for this particular one. And it was at 10:16 at night and 33 seconds. That's when it was submitted. This is automatic, okay? And this is the first response. I will just tell you that the first 2 are ones that I did on that day when I created this, and then I went through to, fill out answers to see what it looked like. So I'm the one that did Barney V. Rubble and I Am Superman or whatever. And here's the answers. And so since we are in a spreadsheet, I can just kind of go across and I can see there's the pretend trainings, how often you use Google Slides or whatever. What would you like to be when you grow up? So we can see all the answers here, much older, retired, I want to be a bee, email address. This is something new. This is when somewhere down at the bottom where I changed it and automatically started collecting the email addresses. And this is why we find Diana Peterson's, because now we know Diana Peterson's number 89. So we could go back and find all of those answers. And so basically, forms are great because you can collect data. That's what they're for. You can do a survey. And just know that ultimately all of the answers are going to be put onto a spreadsheet. And then with that spreadsheet, you get an automatic timestamp. And of course, if you do it the way that you've been able to do it for the last year or 2, you can automatically collect their email address, which I highly recommend because that way you've always got that. But there's all the answers. And so you can see that the very last person that filled this out was from our class this week we had on the 7th of February. That'd be 2 days ago. And they did it just about 1 p.m. in the afternoon. And there's all of their answers. And if we went down to 89, doctor, yes, no, maybe so. Okay, that's pretty clever. I like that, Diana. If 89 was your number, I think it was. Too many emails at sandy.net. That's fantastic. And then there's all the answers over there. So this is the ultimate goal of your form, your survey, is to get the data. So then you have this stuff that you can use this information to direct your program or, whatever, fill in information. And because this is a spreadsheet, you have access to every tool a spreadsheet has to deal with this data. You can manipulate it in any way you want. As I pointed out, I locked the first row, made the header look more like a header, so it's easier for me to kind of scroll through this, and I'll always know that this is the question, where do you work? And that's what these answers are for. So that is the spreadsheet part of that. Any questions about any of this before we go back to here? We've got a few more things we're going to do, like how to send forms out and all of that. So we are almost done. So let's talk about how we would send this out. And first of all, we didn't I don't think we mentioned this, but this is pretty straightforward. If you're doing something and people have to the end of September, at the beginning of the school year, to answer the respondents, then you would tell them that in the beginning, saying in the description, please note, you can only fill this stuff out until September 30th, and after that, it's not available. Come September 30th, you come over here and you hit that toggle. Nobody can answer the questions anymore, even if they have the link. So that's that cool feature. Let's take a look at this. All right. So this is just going to say, you want email things available. If you did send out a link, do you want to unlink it now so that the link doesn't work? That's another way to keep them from coming in. Download responses. So right now we're just in this form. We're not even in the spreadsheet. Maybe we want to put this into Excel, because Excel is 100 times more powerful than Google Sheets. So CSV stands for comma separated value. That's just the formatting for anything that's going to go into a spreadsheet. So if we download this CSV file, we could then copy and paste it into an Excel worksheet or workbook and get all of that. Remember, print all responses. You're going to see Fred Flintstone 6 inches tall, so be careful of that. Delete all responses if we want to start over. If you were going to use this exact same form every September, every school year, it might be a better idea just to go up and say, make a copy and then change it to that school year, so that you have a separate form with all the responses from everyone, as opposed to deleting it all and then starting over. You could have a record that way. So that's pretty cool. The example I normally use would be the school librarians, because some of them at the district are in charge of like 15 different schools. And if you wanted to fill in part of the answers, like which school do you work at, you might be able to select it already for them so they don't have to answer that. That's the gist of what a pre-filled link is. That's probably not a very good example either, but that's what that is. And I really don't have a good example of that, except for if you're going to send it to 10 different groups and each of those 10 groups has a couple of answers that are going to be the same for those groups, you could answer that in a pre-filled link and then send it to them. And then, of course, change the answer to the next group of 10 with another one, so they don't have to waste their time answering something that you should already have. We already talked about printing. Collaborators, that's like editors. That means that I could add the email address for Diana, and she could be working on section 5 of this, and let's see, anybody could be working on another one. We just put them in there as collaborators. If you want to put this form into a web page, you can get the HTML right there. Again, this is for getting extra programs that might make it work a little bit different. We don't really get into that. We can talk about that another time. And keyboard shortcuts, pretty straightforward. This one, so the last one, the most important, is how do you get it out to people? So here again, we have those choices. All right. We're just going to leave it on verified, get their email automatically. And if we know who we want to send this to, it's very specific people in our department or whatever. We have an email list. We can copy that list somewhere and paste it right here, and it's a done deal. They're all going to get that form. All right. Or we can just make a copy of the link. And yeah, it gives us this cool option here to shorten it, but we can copy it, and then we can send an email out to blast to a group or whatever that we have in our emails, in our Outlook or whatever, and just provide that link, and they can click on that link and they'll make it to this form. Here again is the HTML to embed this Google form into a website. This is what we would go to and copy it and then paste it in there. Usually we're going to do it via email. That's pretty cool. And so that's the basics of it. And then we could just send it out and off it goes. So again, there's a difference between respondents. This is what the send is for. This is for people that are going to fill it out. If you want to get people that are going to help you build it, that's what a collaborator is for. That would be the difference. So again, there's a couple different ways to send it out. You can send a link, or you can send it, via email. It's up to you. So what we've done is we've gone through, and I see we've gone over, and I apologize for that, but we're covering this quite thoroughly. We've pretty much gone through every different feature that's available here. We started off with the very basics of just creating, a very simple form with some simple little answers. But then we dug a little bit deeper, and we found out that when we get to things like multiple choice, if we go down here to more options, go to section based on answers. We saw that in our emergency contact thing, how that could make a difference. We saw that in a number of places. And we also found out that depending on the question type, different things happen. Multiple choice only lets you choose one. Checkboxes lets you choose one or all of them or somewhere in between. Both of these have an other option, so they can just fill in their own answer, but a drop down doesn't. But you'll notice that drop downs don't take up much space. So that's why drop downs are nice. So rather than a multiple choice taking up 4 inches and people are scrolling to get to the next section as they fill it out, they just have a simple little box with a drop down menu. They select it and they go to the next one and the next one and the next one. So that works out well. So we've seen examples of every one of these. We've covered all of the different question types. We've talked about all of these different options. We imported some questions. That's what the ZZZ was for the checkbox grid and the multiple choice grid. Adding a title and description. We saw examples of that in our PIF thing where we might have had to have like another title. That's what this is up here, San Diego Unified Contact Information. That's an example of another title right there. Where the heck was I? All the way over here. Okay, so, and we really didn't add images, but it's pretty much the same as docs and sheets and all that. You just have a place where you can go and start selecting images. Is it from Google Images? You get it from Drive, your Google Photos. Do you have a web address for it? Do you have a webcam? Or you just want to upload it, meaning you can get those picture files off of your computer. Pretty straightforward. And then the same with adding a video. We could show how to do that if you'd like, but basically it's just going to allow you to bring a video into one of these tiles. And again, it will come from YouTube, pretty straightforward. So looking at the time and knowing that we've gone pretty long, I'll just say thank you so much for everyone coming today. We're grateful to be able to do this very thorough and pretty much exhaustive presentation on how to use Google Forms. And just know that there's lots of ways to make it unique and specific to your needs with the ultimate goal of collecting all of that data into a spreadsheet where you can then use the tools of the spreadsheet program to be able to manipulate that data and make use of it. It's really just a matter of practicing and going in there. And we learned some of the rules of what can take you to another section, what will allow you only a single response in multiple choice, or a checkbox allows you more than one response. You can check more than one box. But just know this, if you have this all memorized as of this moment, you go away for a week, you might have 3 or 5 new features, or some of the features you already use respond differently. All right. If you go away for a few months, you might find 10 or 20 features. I will just finish by saying this. I taught a Google Forms class during COVID at 9 a.m. to dozens of people, and went to lunch and came back and taught a Google Forms class to another group of dozens of people, and the entire user interface was changed. Settings came down to here. It used to be one of those little mechanical cogwheel things up here. That was the settings button. It ended up down here. They changed the way that we interface with all of these different responses, all of these different options right here, completely changed from the time I did my 9 o'clock class to a 1 o'clock class. So remember that, keep that in mind. Things change, they change very quickly. They're usually trying to make it better, so they're not trying to make it hard for us. Usually those changes are going to make the program more user-friendly or more useful. And so that's why they're trying to make those changes for us so that we keep using their products. So with that, I'll just say thank you so much for coming to learn with us today. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much. I know you're taping these and you're putting them up on the Google Drive, and we'll remind people how to get those on the YouTube for San Diego Unified. So again, we appreciate all your time, Mr. J. You're awesome.
Wonderful. Thank you for letting us do this. And I just noticed in the chat area here that someone named Diana Peterson just gave us this wonderful link. I'm going to click on it. There we go. Now it's working. So this apparently is the translation department at the school district that I had heard about, but never really pursued. So I guess it's just called the translation department. There it is. And there's the information. So if you have something that you need to be translated into additional languages, thank you for providing that. I appreciate that. That's the first time I've ever had a chance to see that. See, I get to learn something new too. So we will see you guys in a couple of weeks when we do the follow-up to this, the question and answer. And thank you so much for coming to learn with us today.